Hi guys, today's video is called Journey Train Part 1 by the author Alecia Agard. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you would like to watch Part 2. The fierce wind cleared the autumn leaves, revealing a brick pathway leading to a church. Inside the church, the congregation sat huddled as they listened to the chimes from the bells stationed on the ceiling. The chimes stopped and the priest stood up and signalled to Scott, a young boy sitting in the congregation with his mother, Linda. Scott then stood up and walked over to the chancel. He said for Mowgli, then produced a crumpled piece of paper. "You were my friend. I will miss you dearly. I wished that you could stay, but you had to go away. I do not know what I will do. I'm really going to miss you." Bowing his head, he walked back down the aisle, noticing the tears of the congregation. After the funeral, Linda and Scott strolled out of the cemetery towards their modest black car. "I can't believe he's gone now," Scott wept to his mother, who was very distraught. "What's heaven really like? How do you get there?" Scott asked. Linda was unsure about the answer, but knew that the beliefs were more positive. There are many mysteries in this world that we may struggle to find the answers for. That's because we're physical, but there's a spiritual side to us, and spiritually we will find the answers in our beliefs, she said. Linda and Scott were determined not to forget Mowgli, and a week later they returned to the cemetery to put flowers on his grave. After leaving the cemetery, Linda was taking Scott to his football match, when suddenly there was a loud bang, a flash of light that transitioned them up above the clouds, through the dark universe, with them remaining completely unaware. Dense clouds of fog hovered in the mist, whilst a bright sun shone through the horizon. A cool, fresh breeze blew away the deep green leaves. The mist cleared, revealing a sandy, stony road. The stony road was set in grass that was deep jade in colour. There were beautiful flowers and tall trees protruding the grass. There was silence all around. The beaming sun fused with a metal object which lay on the stony road, resulting in a light shining brightly. Beneath the beam there was a battered, broken black car. Inside the car was Linda. Her ruffled black hair hid parts of her bruised face. She first rolled her eyes before opening them. She slowly wiped away the blood running down her face before the shock Then horror overcame her. She sprang forward in her seat on seeing her young son strapped lifeless in the seat beside her, covered in cuts and bruises. "Scott, Scott!" Linda shouted, shaking him vigorously, and then she screamed at him, "Wake up!" When there was no response from him, she pulled at the car door. It failed to open. She kicked it open, then raced to the other side, pulling him from the wreck. She dragged him on the grass, shaking him again, and then his eyes slowly opened. "Mom," he muttered. Linda was enthralled to hear him say her name, whilst remaining mystified at the unfamiliarity that surrounded her. She then pondered how she arrived at this mysterious, deserted place. Linda's 2 children were her whole life. She struggled hard to keep them out of poverty. The Manly Park was an overpopulated town that housed hundreds of the poorest people from different nationalities. It also had one of the highest crime rates in the country. Scott was the youngest of Linda's children. He was witty and charming, with pale white skin, fiery ginger hair, and a winning smile, which he inherited from his mother. Scott was a talented 12-year-old boy. His greatest passion was football. He was gifted with blistering pace, which made him a cut above his teammates. The heavily loaded lorry speeded whilst loud music echoed from the cabin. At the same time, the reckless driver stuffed his face with crisps and drink. Then he panicked when a metal object flew across the windscreen, prior to him realizing he had knife-edged into something. His worst thoughts confirmed when he looked through the window and saw the fragmented remains of a car. Pull over and dial for assistance. The emergency services sirens bellowed from their cars, trucks, and vans as they forced their way through the heavy pileups. Their vehicles were flashing blue lights, blocked adjacent lanes, with some stationed at the scene of the crash. In the heat of the mayhem, the paramedics and ambulance crew pumped away at Linda and Scott's chest, whilst police photographed skid marks and scavenged for clues, hoping to secure evidence of this dreadful accident. A lonely and worried Emily opened the street door of her family home. She was expecting her mother and her little brother, but to her dismay, a police officer dressed in uniform, adjusting her radio that was fixed tightly to her jacket, confronted her. "Are you Emily Harris?" she asked. Emily remained silent, startled by her presence. There was a bad feeling that came over her. Something terrible has happened. "Officer Smith, can I come in?" she asked. Emily nodded in response to the officer's question ahead of leading her to the living room, where she fixed her eyes on family photographs exposing happy family days. She then focused on the plants dispatched in each corner ahead of noticing the dining table with the unusual shaped lamp that sat on the table. She then positioned herself on the black leather sofa. "Come and sit down, Emily," Officer Smith said, then patted the seat beside her. Emily accepted, but felt uncomfortable when noticing a compelling look on the officer's face. "It's not good news," her head lowered before continuing. "Your mother and your brother were involved in an accident on the motorway," she announced, her point of vision transfixed on Emily, who was shattered on hearing the news, which made her pace up and down the living room, rubbing her hands continuously until finding a seat at the table, where she set her eyes on a dim beam that seemed to comfort her before turning to Officer Smith. "Will my mum and my brother be okay?" she asked. "They're still with us. There is hope," the officer said.